Welcome back to It Tastes Like Burning. This Matt.
This is Jesse.
And as always, if you ever feel like reaching out to us, you can find us at ittasteslikeburningcast@gmail.com. You can support us on Patreon. Find us on YouTube at It Tastes Like Burning. Make sure you search for the podcast there, or you're going to find a whole bunch of Simpsons episodes. And I'm going to bounce right into something special. Go ahead, Jesse.
Yeah? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. Fire away.
Fire away. I do want to add that everything's in the description, so just go down there in the description. All the links are there. So
like, click, subscribe.
Yeah, all those things.
Reminders.
Yeah, definitely hit all the buttons. Maybe even unsubscribe and then resubscribe. I don't know. It's weird. But
I think that works.
Yeah, but we've got some guests today. One of them's one of our members, Cary. He's been on before. And then we've got Cary and Cary, right? They're actually friends and known each other a long time. But Cary's coming to us from Michigan, and we'll let him kind of dive in, tell us a little bit about himself and a little background on how he managed to end up with us.
Sounds good. I'm Cary Thompson. I've been in public safety for 38 years. I was 25 years at the Royal Oak Fire Department, where I finished up as a captain over one shift, first shift at Royal Oak. And through that time, I started writing grants. And I've been writing grants for about 20 years now, and I became very proficient at it. The first time that I had written a grant, I had cancer, and I was out of work. I couldn't be a fireman. I couldn't work as a firefighter. I was really sick. I was out of work for a year and 3 months, and the city needed me to come back to work so that they could continue to pay me. And so they had me do an office job. And so the office job was they wanted me to write a grant because they had never gotten one before. And so I wrote that grant and I got it. And then they gave me the next grant. I wrote that grant and I got it. And then I kept writing grants and I kept getting them. And then cities around started calling for me to write their grants for them. And it was just amazing. I would never think, when I went through high school, I was not, I really didn't even like English. I like science and math, and I didn't really like English a lot. And to write a grant was like a big deal. I never took a class in it. I never did anything like that. I just started writing. And when I wrote, I got successful and just kept getting grants after grant. 2010, the city of Detroit, they were going through bankruptcy. And when they went through their bankruptcy, they reached out to me and they asked me to write a grant for them. And I did. I complied with them. First of all, I was sick again, had cancer again. I was really sick. And the executive fire commissioner reached out to me and asked me if I'd write a grant. And I told him, I just can't. I want to help you out. I can't. I'm really sick. He goes, well, I'm going to call you every week and I'm going to check on you to see if you're okay, one. And two is I really want you to come write a grant for us, and I really want you to be there to help me out. And so he did. He called me every week to make sure that I was, healthy and that I would come write. So as soon as I felt better, I went and wrote for him. And it's really been a fantastic ride. My partner, Karen Brown, and we wrote $98 million worth of grants for the city of Detroit. We wrote the two largest safer grants ever awarded in the United States still to this day. One was for $22.5 million and one was for $24.5 million. And the largest grant up at that point was $10 or $11 million for the safer grant, and we just blew it away. We knocked our own selves off the block. We had the $22.5 million that was our first one, and then we came back and wrote the $24.5 million right after that and just knocked our own selves off the top of the hill. And it was just really a good thing. All in all,
were all of those for Detroit, or were those for other municipalities, entities?
All Detroit.
Okay.
So they had 883 firefighter jobs in Detroit, and through the by and by, on the safer grant alone, the grants that we wrote wound up saving about 440 of their jobs. And overall, with the safer grant, that's one of my most successful grants, and I've wound up saving or creating around 2,000 firefighter jobs. So it's been an amazing run for just a little guy in, Royal Oak that doesn't even really matter. To be able to write these grants and be able to do all these things is just amazing to me. And I could never believe that when I first started doing that I would wind up in Granbury, Texas, talking to people about grants and stuff. But it's just been an amazing ride. I'm just I'm thankful for it. I just could never imagine myself doing it. But even here, when I arrived here in town, I've just been so thankful that I was able to come here and share the knowledge that I've got to help other fire departments out. And I never want to go to the hospital to visit another injured firefighter. I never want to go to another firefighter's funeral. And if I can write a grant to help save somebody's life or make sure that they don't get injured by getting the proper safety equipment or having enough people, well, that's kind of what I think I was put on earth to do.
So here's my question, because the very first grant you wrote,
yes, sir.
what was it?
Technical rescue grant. We started it. I came from Ford Motor Company. I was a fire marshal at Ford Woodhaven stamping plant, and they trained us in all the facets of technical rescue, confined space, ropes, machine rescue, all that. And when I came to the fire department, we wanted to have a team, but we just didn't have the equipment for it. We were using like gloves we bought from the hardware store, ropes we bought from the hardware store, and we didn't have any equipment. And so it was kind of near and dear to my heart because I helped start the team in Royal Oak. And so I started writing the grant. They said, you can write a grant about anything. We just want to get it because we've never gotten one. So that was near and dear to my heart. So I wrote this technical rescue grant. It was like, I think it was around $175,000. I don't recall exactly, but it bought us every piece of equipment that we needed to be able to start our technical rescue team, and it was just really a good thing. I was really happy with it.
When did you start writing grants that were, what is the word I'm looking for here? I guess what I was going to ask is when they're not task specific, like a technical rescue grant, but more of just a general fire department grant. But the truth is that anytime you do a grant, it is kind of be something specific, whether it be for apparatus or air packs or climbing equipment or trench rescue.
Personnel.
So how long did you write local grants? And I mean, again, you're from very near Detroit.
Right.
So technically that's still local,
right?
And the fire service is small,
right?
And grant writers are even smaller,
right?
And much less successful grant writers. So when was the first time, when did you start writing? You said 2010?
No, about 2003, maybe 2003 or 4. Yes,
so
4,
in that time span, when did you get your first department to reach out to you that wasn't, I'm going to call local?
Outside the state. It was probably about 2 years after I started writing. I started doing a whole lot of grants around the region, around the Detroit metropolitan area, and then it just kind of spread out. Certainly when I started writing for Detroit, and I think it was 2010 or 11, it just spread like wildfire. Like, I don't advertise, I don't do anything like that, but the mere fact that I was able to help Detroit out, and there's like, they say like there's 3 things that if you want to spread the word about you: tell a phone, tell a friend, or tell a firefighter. And they told, they spread the word across the country, and people would call in all over the country, just unbelievable. I'd get calls all the way to California and back, and it was just incredible that I started being able to write grants for people that I didn't even know, never even had met, never met in my life. And they would call and they would have that trust in you to be able to write this grant for their department to help them out. And it was just an amazing thing for me to think that just other firefighters spreading the word about you got your name out there so much that it just spread all the way across the country.
Now, your original home department, was it career, volunteer, combination?
Career. It was 100% career.
When did the first volunteer department reach out to you, or entity that represented or had volunteers in it?
I love that question because it's a great question for me. One of the questions that happened with me when I was going through training to become a firefighter, I own my own business, and I went home to tell my wife that I was going to be a firefighter, and she asked me if I had lost my mind. Like, are you crazy? What do you think of being a firefighter? I go, I always wanted to do it as a kid, and I wanted to become a firefighter, and then I was living out a dream of becoming a firefighter. Well, one of the places I trained at was a volunteer fire department. It was called Dundee, Michigan, and all volunteer, no full-time, no combination. Everything was just volunteer. And so they trained me. I was, I went through EMT school, and I trained with the Dundee Fire Department. I went through paramedic school. I trained with the Dundee Fire Department, and I got finished with them, and I got my career job and was able to carry on, doing what I had learned from them. They were really good at what they did, and they had trained me, and I really appreciated that. So after I started writing grants, I reached out to them and asked them, hey, I do a pretty good job of doing this. Can I help you guys out? And they go, well, hey, we just don't have the money to help. You know, we don't have the money to pay or anything like that. I go, I didn't ask for money. I mean, you guys have been good to me. I want to repay the favor to you. So I started writing grants for them and helping them out. So it was probably maybe about a year after I started writing grants, maybe 2 years after that.
And what was the first grant for them?
I can't remember exactly, but I think it was SCBA's. It was a bunch of SCBA grants or whatever that we got, and it really helped them out a lot. They're just a terrific fire department. They're really knowledgeable. I still reach out to them if I have a question on anything, like anything comes up that maybe I don't know how to deal with it. I'm really a good person about admitting the things that I know how to do and admitting the things that I don't know how to do. If I admit that I don't know how to do it, it's just temporary because I'm going to reach out to experts across the country that are in specific fields that I trust their opinion and value their opinion. And the Dundee Fire Department is one of those fire departments that I reach out to and value their opinion. So I reach out to them all the time.
So here's my kind of next question. If a department, small department, well, it could even be a big department that's broke, but a department, a organization is broke and grants are intimidating to them.
Yes.
How do they start?
Great question. I think, in my own opinion, I think that grants are such a game changer for fire departments across the country, not just in Michigan, not just in Texas, but across the country. They're such a game changer that it seems kind of overwhelming. There's a lot of stuff. And when you deal with grants, it's tedious. There's a lot of you've got to dot the I's and cross the T's. And so reaching out to somebody, like me that knows what they're doing really helps people out. But certainly you don't have to. You can do it all on your own. It's just time consuming, and that they could, look at all that. They need to have FEMA.go account. They need to have their EIN number, employment identification number, and they need to have their DUNS number, and then they have to be registered on SAM to be able to get money in from the government. They have to track where the money is going. And so they have to have all those registrations. And then it's just a series of questions. And the way that I look at it is I'm a simple person. My parents are both from the South. My mom's from Georgia. My dad's from Tennessee. And so my dad always told me, if somebody asks you a question, you answer it. And that's what great writing is. Somebody asks you a question and you answer it. It's just that simple. And people want to make it bigger than it really is and complex and really hard. But the simple answer is if they ask a question, I just answer it. And that's what it comes down to. It's all my success.
In my limited experience with this, I have found that a lot of people just assume that any and all grants out there either come from billion-dollar foundations or federal.
Right.
Is that the case, or is there other options?
There's a whole bunch of grants that are out there. There's, industry has them. The thing that I want to really encourage the firefighters across the country to do is the money's there, and they want to give the money to you, and they'll tell you what their parameters are because they have the money amassed. If it's an endowment fund or if it's different things with different corporations or anything like that, they want to give you the money. And so if somebody tells you that they want to give it to you, all you got to do is ask, but you got to ask in the right way. There's just so many different things. In the United States, there's 99,000 grant makers in the United States, 99,000. And that means that a lot of those grants are untapped every year and people aren't asking for the money. I've never been afraid to ask for money. In my own personal life, I'm a very passive person. I just really don't, I don't rattle the feathers. I don't do anything like that. But when it comes to grant writing, I'm super aggressive on it because it's one thing is I look at it I look at Cary or you guys and I think, oh my God, if I just write this little grant that I might save your life or I might keep you from getting injured. And so I just go after it with a vengeance. I'm just going after that money like there's no tomorrow. And I don't take no for an answer. And if it takes me going after it to make sure that you get the equipment to be able to stay safe or the people that you need to stay safe, I'm going to be the most aggressive person that you've ever met in the whole United States about getting that money in for you because that's what I want to do is I want to keep you safe. We've gotten to be friends over the last couple of days here. And the last thing that I could think of is having to worry about you going to the hospital or being hurt or killed just because of that. I could write a grant to be able to protect you and not doing it. So shame on me if that's the case. I can't even believe that I could even think like that. So I just go after it with a vengeance. And every grant that I take in is just something that's near and dear to my heart, very personal to me. People that trust you, it's like being a firefighter. People trust you. We don't know all the people that we go into their houses to be able to fight fires and take care of their personal property and take care of their families. but they have a respect for us, and they have, like, with that respect, you got to give back to them and give 100% all the time. And that carried over into my grant writing, is the things that I learned as a firefighter, giving my 100% to make sure that even the people that I don't know, I'm protecting them just like I would my family. And it's the same thing with grant writing when it comes to fire departments. I'm protecting them just like I'd protect my own family.
That is awesome.
I was just going to say, the amount of passion that you carry into that.
Yeah, we didn't video record this, and I want to emphasize what Jesse's saying is it's like, Cary, you're a very mellow, very easygoing guy, okay? And I'm not saying that you haven't been passionate up to this point, but he was pissed. I'm telling you.
The amount of passion that you carried into that was just inspiring and amazing, and you're truly an inspiring guy anyway.
Thank you.
Just learning some of your story through this conversation. I mean, you had to whoop cancer twice. Didn't know that, and you know that there's some real things that happened there that made you the person you are, and just absolutely glad to know you and share this with you. And
thank you.
I think there's a lot of information here to digest, and a lot of things for our listeners to take in, and I kind of want to sidetrack just a minute. I want to talk to you about you, and I if you're willing to talk about your cancer deal a little bit. I think that's because that's kind of in the forefront of everybody's mind now. It's being brought up to, firefighters and cancer. Was yours related to the job, or do you think so? Or
yes, sir, I do. I got the first cancer I had was thyroid cancer, parathyroid cancer, and lymph node cancer, and so it was a big deal. What me and another firefighter at our department, we both got sick about the same time. To my knowledge, I was the very first firefighter in our city that got cancer, and it all came directly from my job, and I was really, really sick. I almost died. I was out of work for 1 year and 3 months, but it's inspiring in the way that when you look at it, because I when I was working in the fire department, I had burned through all my sick time, all my vacation time, and all that. And you know how firefighters are; we all stick together. And so the firefighters at the job, they would just show up for work in the day, and they'd say, "Hey, I'm Cary Thompson today," and they'd go in and work my shift for me, so that my family would continue to get money and get paid. And then firefighters around the Melvindale Fire Department, which is really outside of Detroit, those guys did everything in the world. They took my daughter. I had a really young daughter at the time, and they took my daughter and they gave her money to be able to go on a shopping spree at Toys R Us. And all the other fire departments, they would want to do fundraisers for me. And I'm like, I don't want you to do that. I just want to get better. And the guys at my work were taking care of me, so I continued to get a paycheck. And I thought it would be wrong to ask other people to, if they came to me and asked me for a fundraiser, I'd tell them, no, I don't want that, because I was already getting a paycheck anyway, so I didn't want to do that. But it was just amazing. Every day I would wake up and I would walk out to, I had a hard time walking 5 feet because I was just really weak and tired and sick. And I'd have a hard time just even going to the door. But every day when I'd go out there, there'd be somebody out there washing my windows, cleaning the lawn, cleaning the sidewalk off, washing my car, all firefighters, just taking care of me, all around, just doing everything that they could for me. And people would be cutting the grass, and I got out there, and I went out there, and I was really weak, and I went out to the guys that were there, and they were from Melvindale, and I went out to them, and I talked to them, and I said, "You guys do know we have a lawn service, don't you?" And they all laughed and stuff. So they were just, just wanted to give them a little bit of humor, so it broke up the intensity of it, and it was just really a scary thing, It was, in a way, there wasn't anybody that I could go talk to. And I've made it a point to be the guy that people call out if they have issues with cancer or anything like that, to tell them that it's not a death sentence like it used to be. It's just one of the things that there's a lot of good treatments that's out there. And that if you just go in there, and I tell them the things even for the people listening to this podcast, if you haven't thought about it, firefighters get cancer at a really increased rate over the general population because of things we're exposed to. And the thing is that for you and for every other firefighter is getting a cancer policy or doing something like that to be able to protect yourself and your family after something happens to you. For me, I didn't have a really big life insurance policy at the time. And then when I got cancer, I wasn't able to get a life insurance policy because I didn't want to give a cancer patient life insurance. And I'm thinking, who's going to take care of my family when I'm gone, And so simple things like that nobody ever tells you in the fire service, you really need to be doing those things. You need to get a cancer policy. You need to get a life insurance policy. You need to have a plan for if something happens to you, having your wife having the power, your family member, somebody you trust having the power of attorney, and your medical power of attorney so that they can make medical decisions for you. Because certainly in times when I was really sick and I was out of it, my wife or other people had to make decisions for me, and I had to give them that authority to be able to do that. And that's something we just don't want to think about as firefighters. It's just we think we're 10 foot tall and bulletproof, and none of us are.
No, we're not.
No.
Yeah, definitely not.
I pulled up the just current cancer rates in the U.S. Firefighters have a 9% higher risk of being diagnosed with cancer and a 14% higher risk of dying from cancer than the general U.S. population.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It's something that's real here in this area.
And for you, it was before. There's a lot more knowledge and statistics now. You led into the statistics that we have now that have brought this to the forefront.
Yeah, I was going to ask, was your cancer diagnosed as work related?
At the time, they didn't. At the time, they didn't do that.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
No, it was just I was just all on my own time. I had to take my own sick time, my own vacation time, my own personal business. Everything was all on me. Everything was on me, and it's just I'm just so glad. Like the city of Detroit now, they're doing if somebody dies with cancer in their fire department, they're giving them a line of duty death, and I respect that so much. It's just one of the things that we're doing the job that we do. They give it to the thing that people think about is like the money that the federal government gives you if you die in the line of duty for being a firefighter. The only thing that they don't cover is cancer. And it's one of the things, like they cover cardiac, they cover everything, but they don't cover the cancer. And we saw that, you just mentioned the statistics about it, and we're getting cancer. We know that the cancer is ours, and we know that it's come from our job. But yet, if a person dies in the line of duty, they don't pay off anything to your family. So you're just kind of we're just kind of out there all on our own. And it's something that's like a dirty little secret about firefighting that nobody talks about, but it really says something that the government needs to look at about trying to take care of the people that support them.
Well, and I think it's starting to be talked about more and more, and we've certainly had an episode where we talked about it, and bless you, and we've had conversations on the podcast about it, but it's certainly becoming more in the spotlight and more lights being shined on it, and we know people locally and that are affected by it. It's if you're doing this for any amount of time, you're gonna know somebody
for sure.
We think, and it's not a question that I want to ask out loud too broadly, because we think we have a local individual that is going to be the first volunteer to test the presumptive clauses on volunteer cancer policies. And I think he's the only one that I know of, at least in Texas. I suspect probably in the Northeast there's probably a couple that have pushed their states. But in Texas, he's the first volunteer that I know of that's making a work-related cancer claim being a volunteer.
Man.
And we personally know him, so of course we're going to be vested in it just from that perspective alone. But as a chief, I am really, really interested in what's going to ultimately happen with this particular individual and just the minutia of his story. The one thing I'll say, and it's terrible, but it's just a truth, the first one through the brick wall's usually the one with the bloody nose.
That's right.
And if he really is the first one, he's got his work cut out from him to figure out how to hurdle the colossal amount of red tape. And I don't want to say barriers that are in place, but if it's a first for everyone.
That's right.
And the question is not to be cold or terrible, but will he live long enough to be able to get through the red tape and as everyone adjusts to trying to figure out the hurdle? I will go as far as to also say the one thing that volunteers in Texas need to focus on is taking full advantage of their SFFMA memberships and getting their certifications done.
Yeah,
This is critical.
Yeah, that is one of the requirements, is that you hold a certification, and for the volunteer fire service in Texas, the only way to get that certification is through SFFMA. So
Or TCFP.
or having the TCFP, the career certification. So you've got to put the time, energy, and effort into that certification at the beginning of your fire career, volunteer career, in order to protect yourself on the back end, because at the point in time where it's happened, it may be too late. You may not be able to get anything done, and it's a long process. I mean, I'm a prime example. I had a basic certification back in the early 2000s, but for me to become full fire 2 just happened recently in the last couple of years. Well, that's 20-something years in the making to get to that deal, and that's too long. It's way too long.
For sure.
It is. It's a modern age. It's a modern time. It's a new level of bureaucracy. The fact of the matter is that cancer is, I will not say preventable, but I will say is treatable.
Very much.
But the kicker with this is, one, you have to pay attention to your health, and two, the true cost of being an American, you have to be financially prepared for that.
For sure.
And if you are not, then this is just our system. You're not going to clear that hurdle because you don't have the insurance to be able to even get into the door for treatment. You don't even have to have good insurance. Financially, you're going to be ruined regardless, but you don't get in the door for the treatment without the insurance.
Right.
That's the gatekeeper on this. And I think a lot of people kind of neglect to remember that little factoid.
Right.
The insurance is the gatekeeper to even be able to start the treatment. They don't care how bad your insurance is. You just have to have insurance to get in the door.
Yeah.
And that little factoid gets forgotten. And it's not just young men and women that don't have insurance. And it's something that, like you were talking about with the cancer policies, that gets you in the door.
You're right.
And I can tell you from my experience on Granbury that we've had a lot of our older members, they've passed, and it's about 50-50, cancer or heart.
Right.
And sprinkle in some Parkinson's.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I would argue the Parkinson's patient, longtime member, I would argue that his was definitely job related, but to his actual career. He worked at a major U.S. production facility doing some pretty technical work, and he just happened to do electrical wiring, and he was around vats of solder for about 30 years. I have a sneaky feeling, not a lawyer, obviously didn't mention the facility or his name, but that's what did it to him. He had no history of Parkinson's. The family had none. Parkinson's is known to be genetic.
Man.
And if it's not genetic,
it's environmental.
It's environmental.
Yeah. One of the things, like I always feel remiss if I don't say something about how you can prevent it. And the one thing is like when we first started off in the fire service, we wanted our helmets to be charred. We wanted our uniforms to be the dirtiest one on the scene. It meant, we're hard workers, and we wanted to carry that badge around of dirty gear. And the thing is that gear is not dirt. That's carcinogens that are in your gear. And so after a fire, you need to be switching that gear out, washing it down. You need to take a bath. You need to scrub your hair. You need to scrub your armpits and your neck and your groin, and you need to get all that stuff off of you. My goal as a firefighter is before it's all said and done, when I leave this earth, I want every fire department in the United States to be doing decon on the scene. Well, we're fighting a fire. We think we're fighting a fire, but actually we're fighting a hazmat fire. All the chemicals that are inside the building that are getting out and getting onto us and getting into our skin and absorbing into our bodies. There's nothing better that we can do than to decon on a scene. And we got to treat every fire like a hazardous materials operation and not just like a fire. And I think that would do more to save firefighters' lives than anything else. And that's my goal, is to push that out across the United States as fast as I can get it there. And hopefully people will start abiding by it.
Yeah, it's a different house than it was in the 70s, 80s, 60s.
Yes, sir.
You know, that the house now is full of
plastics,
petrochemicals. Yeah,
it's all hydrocarbons.
It's all hydrocarbon.
It's all hydrocarbon driven.
I mean, you're basically walking into a refinery and fighting a fire, and it's not the same.
No. And they said it's like, like in hazmat, they always tell you that there's a synergistic effect when something starts to burn and then another one starts to off gas, and they kind of combine there. We don't even know what we're being exposed to, right? So when you don't know what you're being exposed to, you got to get that off your body as quick as you can. So that decon just makes the most sense to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's just modern fire science and firefighting tactics have caught up to the change in switching from legacy materials to a hydrocarbon-based fire. And, you're seeing a lot of discussion and new technology coming around in advancements of dealing with, frankly, the fires that our grandfathers didn't have. Advancements in SCBAs, advancements in the PPE, advancements in the thermal imaging, advancements in the air monitoring, on and on. So they're physically addressing the physical change in the fire, and it's just taken this long, and quite frankly, all the way up to 9/11.
That's right.
Until they finally realized, like, oh, maybe the crap you're actually breathing when you're not on your air pack and the crap that you're standing in and taking home with you has a potential to actually affect you.
Yes.
And it's becoming an industry standard now, but I mean,
well, all of that stuff's paved with the blood of those that have paid the price on it.
Right.
And,
the first one through the walls with a bloody nose.
Yeah.
That's right.
One of the things that I think about in this conversation of the materials and all that stuff. So we have a what's commonly referred to as a flashover simulator. We call it a fire lab. But if you ever went to one of those 20 years ago, like your helmet's got scorch marks, it's melted, it ruined gear, people got burns from it. Like it was an intense thing to go through that training. Now we do this training in the same environment, the same piece of equipment, the same simulator, but we're able to, because of the modern materials that we're using, the modern construction materials that we're using for fuel in this thing, it's flashing at much lower temperatures.
That's right.
We're able to
much faster.
We're able to see the same results in the flashover or the rollover that we saw 20 years ago, but we're able to see it at a 600 degree temperature versus a 1200 degree temperature. And we're not ruining PPE as a side effect of that, which is great, but we need to realize that that's just as important to go clean your gear.
That's right.
And do the decon after that training, because even though it's training and your gear looks fine, all that stuff's still there.
That's right. It's all in there.
We'll go down the rabbit hole just a little further on this. I still think, and I take a bunch of weird stances on this. I think the clean cab concept at face value is a good idea, but how can you have... I just got a text message from one of our guys. It looks like that he's moving forward with his job stuff. Let me read that real quick. Yeah, he's moving on to Bedford.
Wow, excellent.
We all need to do cartwheels in the rain.
Raining in Texas and a job offer.
Yeah. I think we're taking the right steps, but they're half measures. the clean cab concept, to me, in principle, makes sense, but you're missing the mark. The question I have is, what are you doing the day after the fire?
That's right.
What are you doing to detox? To me, and in my very non-medical rat brain, it's more beneficial to have health checks, health screenings, the appropriate, I'm going to call it health care, insurance and stuff,
Yeah.
but an actual detox program. I think the research that they're doing on saunas is, quite frankly, just more beneficial than the clean cab concept. And the clean cab concept makes sense, but the problem is that you're still driving to the scene.
Yep.
They're still wearing ultimately the same gear that was inside the fire, even though they had their PPE on. Their exposure was still there. You're still taking it to the cab of the truck.
Yep.
I think that's just part of the equation.
Yeah.
It's not the full equation. To me, the real equation is what you're doing when you're not on the job.
Yep. When you look at it, if you look at a greenhouse and the way that the sun shines in through the windows of the greenhouse and it kind of off gases, right? The same thing's happening to your turnout gear. I hung my gear in the back door of the cab for my whole career. But when I learned that the sun's coming in and hitting that gear and off gassing all the chemicals that are in my gear, well then certainly you're going to carry it in the cab, but putting it in like a plastic tote, anything that you can do to prevent that sunlight from hitting it and off gassing is going to do more to protect you. And like even cleaning the cab, like a clean cab concept is difficult at best. We all know that. But cleaning the cab and making sure you scrub it down all the time to make sure you get their carcinogens out of there makes sense. It should be part of a regular checkup that everybody's doing it.
Yeah, it's just, this is a really complex thing.
It is.
And again, to me, you could have the cleanest station, the cleanest cabs, the cleanest gear, the 14 sets of spare PPE,
right?
37 backup SCBAs per firefighter.
But you're still wearing the same socks.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And the underwear.
Right.
And and you're not addressing the fact that there is an absorption and adsorption rates on this.
That's right.
And you're not addressing the fact of the matter is that our largest organ, our skin, is going to be our primary contact point. And I think there's work to be done there.
I agree.
I'll just leave it at that.
When you take a shower after a fire, there's not one of us in the room that's been a firefighter for any period of time. Come out of a fire, you take a shower, you scrub your hair, you scrub your body down, and 3 days later, you still smell like you've been in a smoker, right? And so that means we're not doing a thorough enough job about cleaning it, and that's where that sauna comes in. I really agree with that.
If you get that reach toothbrush and you go up in the nostril, you got to kind of twist it a little bit, but you go up in there, you can sometimes get that out. It's got to be a reach toothbrush. It can't be the Colgate one.
Here's something that's just silly, okay? And the people that are listening to this, think about this for half a second. Your typical shower and bathroom gels, particularly men's products, they're all moisturizers. What is the actual chemical purpose of a moisturizer? Mm-hmm. It is to grab and soak into the skin.
That's right.
You're doing it exactly wrong. You need to grab one of those classic lava bars, okay, that has pumice, that is actually exfoliates. First off, your significant other is going to really appreciate this because now you're going to be all soft and fantastic, okay? You go in, you actually use an exfoliate, you remove the crap that's on top of your skin. And then, when you're out of the shower, you can then moisturize, okay? But if you do if you do that opposite, okay, particularly with your hair and particularly with the parts of, your hands and your neck and your face, that is where all that crap's actually collected at. And you're driving it deeper into your skin. And it seems silly to talk about it that way, but that is literally what's happening.
Well, in the world now where there's so many boutique soaps and they're actual soap and they're not made in a chemical plant, right?
Right.
That stuff's easily acquired. You can get actual real soap. You don't have to have the emulsion of whatever,
Old Spice awesomeness.
yeah, that there is out there. You can get actual soap, and soap works, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're better off with the bottle of Dawn dish soap than you are
That's right.
the Old Spice. Now Old Spice is going to be mad at us.
Yeah, I can guarantee you, if Dawn dish soap's good enough to dunk a duck or an oily seal in, it's good enough for you.
Oh, I've done plenty of Dawn dish soap showers.
So, yeah, there's a reason, literally a chemical reason that product is used for that, and why they're not using Old Spice, to wash
Axe.
Or
Let's
Axe.
throw Axe in there too.
yeah, to wash a seal up or a duck. I mean, there's literally a reason they're not doing that. Like I said, I know it's silly to talk about it that way, but I mean it literally could be that simple. One thing I want to kind of go back to on the grant stuff,
Yes, sir.
is there anything the departments can do, not only as a department, but with their membership, to help make them, one, more prepared and make them for a higher eligibility for grants?
Yeah.
In other words, should they be pursuing certain NIMS training or have all the NIMS training or whatever, the courage to be safe, the cancer awareness, everybody comes home, whatever. Is there things that departments can do ahead of time to make their eligibility for that said grant easier?
Oh, for sure. The one thing is like you'll have NFPA standards that are out there that we all abide by, and we don't have to, but we accept them as being the standard for firefighting. And so people will start to write grants, and they won't refer back to like the NFPA standard. I buy the standard every single time somebody hires me to do a grant. If it's for a vehicle, I get the NFPA. It was 1901, now it's 1900. Anything that comes up, I buy the book. I buy the little NFPA book, and I go through there and see what's the important parts of that standard, and I kind of just put it back in there. I make sure that they know that we're abiding by the standard, we're looking at the standard, and it's not just out of the Cary Thompson mind. It's out of the NFPA standard where firefighters from all over the country have come together and said, this is what we think is the norm, this is what we should do. And so people just want to write down that they think that, oh, hey, I'm Cary Thompson, I'm a really good guy, I deserve to get this grant. That's not good enough for grants. You got to have the reasons why, and it all refers back to that standard. One of the other things that you could do is, if it was me and if I was in a small department, I would get Grammarly. There's I can't believe some of the grants that I read that, oh my goodness, like putting the sentence together is really tough for people. It's not my major. It wasn't my major, but it's one of the things that I've become better at English through just learning about it and doing all that. And the other thing was like putting in a Word document and reviewing it and reviewing your spelling and reviewing your grammar. That's all important things to make sure that when you put the grant forward, if the people my dad is a Southern man, he's from Tennessee, and he told me if people have to stop and think about the word you use the wrong word, right? And that held over into grant writing for me big time, because I use simple, small words that if you or I or anybody's reading it, they could look at the word and just peruse it and say, oh, okay, this is what that means. But if people always, when they're first starting to write grants, they're using these big words so that everybody will think you're the most intelligent guy in the room. Nobody cares. They just want to know that the information is there and that you're getting it out there clear and concise. My secret to grant writing when I first started off is, at the time my daughter was really little, but I had a niece that was like 9 or 10 years old, and I'd let her read my grant. If my 9 or 10-year-old niece couldn't understand what I was writing in that grant, I would rip it up and start all over again, because I wanted to keep it as simple as I possibly could, that I could get the information out there and that a 9 or 10-year-old could understand it. So,
well, in Texas, it's an average senior in high school now. So.
Yeah, but probably.
Moving on.
But yeah, just keep it simple.
Yeah, it's I see, and this will be kind of a self-shame on me. We're in a unique position. You've seen our organization.
Amazing.
And grant writing takes time.
Yes, sir.
And I literally use that as a crutch we don't go for a lot of grants
Right.
because I'm busy doing other stuff.
Right.
Now, I also take a very self-centered point of view from this also. I am volunteer. This is whatever block segment of time that I'm putting out there
Right.
is for this. I'm not going to also offer another X amount of hours a week or per project for this. The fact of the matter is that the other entities around us, the county, the city, the whatever jurisdiction entity, whoever's in charge of us, maybe those paid people could probably invest a little time in it so that I don't have to. And I know that's a really obstinate point of view on that, but there's even a point where for me enough's enough. And I put a lot of time into our organization.
For sure.
And it's not I'll go as far as to say it's not a good point of view to have, but there's only so far that I'm going to fall on the sword too.
Yeah, I think back, and I've been relatively involved in dealing with a lot of departments through the years, through either helping them with training or whatever. And one of the objections I've seen a lot of smaller departments say when it comes to grants is they don't want to go after government money because it's more than there's just strings attached. They think that they're going to lose their identity of who they are, and they're going to be beholden to FEMA or the state of Texas or whatever because they take this money. Now we're going to have to do what they tell us to do.
No.
And I think that's a good myth to dispel
For sure.
because it's really not that way. Yeah, sometimes there's some reporting requirements and there's some things like that you're going to need to keep up with because they want to see that over the time that money is done good. That it wasn't just wasted.
That's right.
But even if it was wasted and the data pushes them to that point, they're not looking to take it back. They just want to know that, hey, next time maybe we don't give them money for that, right?
It's just like all of us, you grew up on a school ground or whatever, and if I messed you over, I might get away with messing you over once, but I'm not going to get away with messing you over twice. So just make your rules just like you did on the playground. I tell you what I'm going to do, and then I do it. And that's the way that you get grants. And the first grant you write is going to be hard to get. Second grant, not so hard. And the money's just there. You can't ever think about, like, if you're looking at your department and saying, hey, man, if we had X number of dollars, we could do this. And, oh, my goodness, it'd be better for our guys. It'd be better for our women. It'd be better for our citizens. Grants are the key. It's the game changer. Anything, if the people that are out there that are thinking that way, I'm just going to tell you straight and narrow, grants are a game changer. The money's there to make sure that your firefighter stays safe and your community stays safe. And they actually dictate money in the grant for just volunteer organizations. The money's sitting there. If you're not going after it, you should be going after it with a vengeance to try to get that money to come back to you. If you don't do it, the next neighboring department's going to do it, and they're going to get the money and make their department better. I want my department to be the best.
Yeah. I think a lot of times, too, departments will go for that low-hanging fruit.
Yes.
Of the stuff that's real easy. They go do the bake sale at Walmart and Walmart matches it or whatever the low-hanging fruit is in their area. But they don't ever go after the ones that take a significant time investment and sometimes it's for the reasons Matt stated, right? It's you're not going to give that extra time. But there's folks out there that can help you through those processes.
That's right.
And sometimes those folks, sometimes that money to pay that person can be written into the grant, correct?
Yeah. Oh, it always can be. What they do is they have a line item on there that you have the grant writer, and you put that in there, and then that money comes off. There's like a copay, if you would, for lack of a better term, a match. And on every grant, it could be for a small area, it could be 5%, it could go as high as 10%. And that money comes right off the top of whatever it is. For me, I write grants, I'm good at it. And I feel terrible saying that because it sounds cocky, but I'm not. I'm a very humble person. But I always make the promise to a department is if they hire me to do a grant, I tell them if there's some stupid reason, some silly reason why they don't get the grant, the next year I write it for them for free. Well, I write so many grants, I couldn't afford to do that if I was
not good at it, right?
I put my money where my mouth is at. Like I don't take the grants that I don't think I can get. I'm not in this to make money. I'm in it to literally to make sure that firefighters stay safe. And so I make that promise every single time. You hire me to do a grant, I don't get it, we'll do it again next year for free. And it never goes 2 years. It's usually something that's silly that's happened that the reason why somebody doesn't get the grant, because I only take grants that I know I can get.
Yeah, and even in the world of smaller local, like there's nearly always a grant writer somewhere within 100 miles of you. They may not be familiar with fire service specific stuff, right? But there's channels and there's information that most of those people subscribe to that the general public wouldn't know that's there. Right. Databases, knowledge
that's true.
That we as a department are not going to invest the money to be a part of that knowledge base.
That's true.
And those people have access to that because they're doing this for 20, 30, 40, 50 different organizations. Right. So they can spread that cost throughout that and justify it. Whereas, your department that has a $25,000 a year budget can't justify. That's right. Some of these things. I've seen as much as $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 to subscribe to these lists, and they're not gonna give 20% of their budget to have information.
Right. One of the things that I can tell you is there's this one outlet. It's called Chronicles of Philanthropy. And a lot of grants that come out, for all your listeners, if they're looking to get into the grant business and start making their department better by grants, Chronicles of Philanthropy, they come out with a big list of all these grants that are coming open. Grants.gov, they have a list of them. You don't need that. You just need these couple websites that put the information out there, and then you see the grants that kind of align with your organization, and you just go after them. One of the things that that one of the departments did, it was a regional grant in Missouri. They had 8 different departments that they wanted to bring me in to write grants for them. And so they had a rock quarry that was in town, and the rock quarry would give them like a certain X number of dollars per year to do something for the fire departments. So they all decided as a group that they would use that money to hire a grant writer to get SCBAs. And so they told me, they said, hey, we want you to fly down to Missouri. We want you to come here and see what we're doing. We want you to get exposed to the different departments. And so the rock quarry flew me down there, and I got to see their departments, and then they paid for the grant for me to write their grant. They got a $1.5 million grant for SCBAs to be able to take care of all those 8 different departments, and their whole budget didn't add up to that. All 8 departments together, their budget didn't add up to that. So you can do all the fundraisers that you want. You can sell all the cookies, all the, whatever you want. $1.5 million, that's an awful lot of cookies. It's a lot of car washes. It's a lot of everything. And it's just simply just hiring the right people to do the right job.
Well, and what you're talking about is just a new factoid. The gear is too expensive.
Yes.
The equipment and the tools are too expensive. The apparatus are too expensive. The stations are too expensive anymore.
Yes, sir.
Insurance.
I'm sorry, and don't get me wrong. I'm all about your community interaction. I'm not saying bail on the community interaction. It's a vital part of the recruiting and awareness for your organization. But thinking that you're going to fundraise for
an engine,
they're $1 million now. Right. From the big manufacturers. Maybe something a little more regional, smaller producer. Okay, it's $700,000.
Well, in the year 2000, I bought a Pierce Contender International 4-door engine. That truck was $168,000 in the year 2000. That truck today is north of $750,000.
Yeah. Good luck.
Yeah.
Doing a fundraiser on that's near impossible. Like we talked yesterday, Gary brought it up, is that, hey, if I save up the money for it, next year it's going to be 10 to 20% higher. And every time I keep chasing this target that I can't get to because it keeps going up every year. It's terrible. Anytime you talk about fire, you're sending a firefighter into a fire with roughly $10,000 worth of gear. You know, the SCBA, the turnout gear, radio, all that stuff. You're probably talking more than $10,000.
Oh no, it's $27,000. The air pack's $10,000. The
Right.
radio's $5,000. The
Right.
thermal imager's $5,000.
right. You're sending them in with a ton of
Right.
equipment.
The cheap crap, which is $5,000, is the helmet, boots, gloves, jacket, pants, Nomex.
Right.
That's the cheap part.
That's the cheap
in
part.
the equation at $5,000.
Yes.
Yeah, it's $27,000 to equip one firefighter now.
So you start looking, you go on a fire scene and you see people standing out there and think about that. 20,000, 20,000, 20,000. Every firefighter that's out there, it doesn't take long before even the big cities can't afford to pay that.
And it is. It's just, and again, I'm not saying abandon your fundraising. That's not my point. My point is that your fundraising's never going to get you there. You
But-
have to start looking at other options.
The key to the fundraising is a lot of these things, and Cary mentioned it, there's a match. So if it's 5%, you've got a lot better chance of raising 5% of $1 million, right?
Right.
Whereas raising the $1 million is Mount Everest, the 5% is a doable thing. And
We went to a fundraiser this year, right? That was it was the end of last
end of
year.
last year.
Okay. Itty bitty town, West Texas, community absolutely smashed it out of the park. Tiny place, total population, what, 300, 400?
Yeah, maybe 300.
That's people, not thousand.
Yeah, people, total. Their department had one engine, 2 brush trucks, maybe
And a-
3 brush trucks and
And
a
a
squad.
tanker or something like that.
And they raised I think I'm too low. They raised $150,000 off this fundraiser. Okay, it was phenomenal. It's one of the more incredible things that I've seen on the fundraising side. Smashed it out of the park. Not even a 10% payment on something.
Yeah, right.
That's their operating budget. So it's not like you can take the money and just put it in the bank. So they have money left over. We'll pretend their entire fundraiser is $150,000, and they were extra fiduciary prudent and saved all their money. Okay, so they had $30,000 left over. That's not even 3%. I mean, ouch. What are you going to do? Do that for 10 years? Well, again, we just talked about inflation. The numbers, they don't work.
It's unachievable.
So, departments, I think this new round of inflation, people talk about recruiting and retention and that's going to be the death of the VFDs out there. It's not. What's going to be the death of the VFDs is the exorbitant cost associated, I won't use that word, expenses related to trying to keep the organization going.
That's right.
Just look at the absurd rate and the cost of just insurance.
Yes.
That just kills me.
Fuel.
Yeah. Fuel's a big one, particularly for smaller entities. Actually, fuel's a big one regardless.
Right.
I can think of a gigantic entity in the DFW area. I don't know. They probably have 1,500 employees. It's an ambulance service.
Yeah.
And they probably run 50 ambulances, and their fuel bill went up something like 60% over the course of a year on a fixed budget. What? That's impossible.
Where's the money going to come from?
Yeah, no one survives that.
No.
Yeah, it's a real problem right now, and it's not just a problem for VFDs. It's obviously a real problem.
Yeah, it's systemic.
For established agencies.
You look at that recruitment and retention, the SAFER grant's not just for hiring people, but there's a recruitment and retention part of the SAFER grant. So if people are thinking that that's a big thing, it is, but there's money available, even grant money available for that, to be able to recruit. At fire departments, I don't care if you're in Texas, I don't care if you're in Michigan or California, wherever you're at, we're having a hard time getting firefighters, and we're having a hard time getting firefighters to come do the job anymore. It's not it's not like it was before. When I went to apply for the job in Royal Oak, there was over 2,000 people apply for one job. Now it's not the case. We might have jobs that go unfilled for a long period of time, and volunteer departments are really facing that across the country. They're having a hard time getting people into.
That's something that we talk about a lot here. And just to hit one nail on the head with what you were talking about with the SAFER grant with recruiting and retention, we're taking full advantage of one of those programs
through the state. Yeah,
That's a good thing.
The state applied for one, and it's available to volunteer departments that are members of the state association, and their program is excellent. I mean that the company that they hired to write and manage that process is excellent. They're doing a great job with it, and they think out of the box some, and they come up with new ideas and new ways to try to foster that, because they're reapplying for that every I guess 3 years or 4 years or whatever the cycle is
3
on
years.
it, and they're constantly looking at what are the needs, how can we address those needs, what's going to work, what's not going to work, because sometimes they try something and it just flat doesn't work.
That's right.
And that's not the end of the process. That's just a learning point in the process to try the next thing and realize that this worked really well. We should double down on that and then maybe add this other new thing.
That's right. I tell you, I know you probably your time limited, but I have this program that actually Gary came through, where we have a high school program where we certify the students in Fire 1, Fire 2, hazardous material operations, and EMT. And I tell you, if anybody across the country is thinking that they're having a recruitment and retention issue, having a program like this is just magnificent. They think that 95% of the people that come through a program like that stay with the sponsoring agency. They always want to give that sponsoring agency a chance because that's the one that they're most exposed to. So if your department is having a recruitment and retention issue, starting this high school program, starting a program like this, it's the key, and nobody's really looking at it, and it's a good thing to do.
Yeah, it's a piece of what we do. It's not in conjunction with the school, but we have a junior program. We work with these kids, and it's really hit or miss, and it takes a very special person to manage that program,
For
right?
sure.
And that tends to be more of a struggle, is finding the actual person that has passion and the ability to drive that forward.
Yes.
Versus, because our roster's big and we have lots of people, we're still people limited
Very
on
much.
what jobs people will be successful at,
That's right.
So we have to put the right person in the right position to be successful.
Yes, sir.
And that's one of the key things that, as leadership of the department, we have to be conscious of. And eventually, they're all great firefighters, but they're not all great at all these different jobs.
That's true.
And you've got to balance that. That's the more difficult part that I see in any of the recruitment, retention, junior programs, any of training, all those things, is having the right person in the right position to do the job successfully.
Agreed. I totally agree. It's just a big thing. We've been able to secure college credits for the kids coming through our school. They get 21 credit hours for firefighting, get 9 college credit hours for EMT. So they're halfway to an associate's degree before they even get out of high school. And that's a really good thing for, our region. It's just an amazing thing for the kids because we come from a not rich area. And so the kids being able to get, a lot of their college education before they even graduate is just an amazing thing.
Well, a testament to the program is Gary comes to us with good skills, good knowledge. He's 1,000 miles from home, right? When he joins our department, but he's able to slide right in and be successful based off of what you learned at school, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So
one thing that I always find hilarious in this discussion, and it's hard to not say incredibly foul things to the person when they think they're trying to bring up a valid point.
Yeah.
And they're like, the statement goes like this: why would you train someone young who's just going to ultimately leave your organization in X years to have a career? And it's like, how's that not good, stupid?
Right.
That is arguably one of the greatest forms of our community service that we provide. We take young men and women who want to do good things in the world, and we put them on a career path, give them the education and training and the general direction to get them hired somewhere, and we made the community better in the process.
Right.
Think about what the hell you're asking me before you try and think that that's bad.
Not to mention,
dummy.
not to mention the exponential growth of networking that creates.
Right.
Amazing.
It's just staggering, and that's a classic dinosaur response. Well, don't bring the youngins on because they're going to leave. That's the
Hopefully
point.
So, yes.
Yeah. When you look at Gary, and for me, I'm an old dog. I'm going to be 60 this year, and they're going to put me out to pasture. And the greatest point of pride is this firefighting is not about me anymore. It's about Gary. It's about the young men and women that we can raise up. This year, I'm going to train my 2,000th firefighter to be a firefighter in a job that's out there being successful. I've got wildland firefighters. I've got volunteers, career. I got them all. Industry, airport, all of them. And I tell you what, anything that I've been able to do, any award that I've ever been able to get, or any accolades that I've ever been able to get in my career, it pales in the comparison what these guys are going to be able to do. They're going to go out and they're going to change the world. They're going to make firefighting what we all dreamed about. And so there's no better thing that you can do is to give your gift, the things, the knowledge, and the gifts that you've been given, give it away to the next generation to make sure that they go out and spread to the wind and become more successful and greater than I've ever dreamed of.
Yeah, and that goes right into what I always say, and that's our true only job here is to train our replacements.
That's right.
That's it.
That's right.
That's our only purpose of being here is to train our replacements.
That's right.
And if we can drive that home to the ones that are below us, so that they continue to do that, we've been the only success that we could ever measure, right?
That's right. Yesterday I got to come in and I got to ride along with Gary and come see your department and see the runs you went on, and it's my craft. It's his craft. It's your craft. It's everybody's craft. And to be able to just be a student of the craft and be able to learn. And there was a lot of things yesterday that the student became the teacher, and I got to learn from him. And oh my gosh, it was one of the proudest days of firefighting that I've had, because here's a product of, I've seen him since he was a little boy and comes to be this great man and become a great firefighter, and then was able to teach me stuff. And it was just such a sense of pride that I can't even begin to tell you.
Yeah. So Gary, what do you think about all that? You've been quiet all this whole time, and I mean, you have to have a perspective on this, right? We're all the old guys telling you how heart swelling it is to see this happen. What is it for you?
I mean, to me, training is always something I've been big into. Even when I was taking the class in high school, I was always helping the next guy. You guys always say, like, we're only as strong as the weakest link, and so even back in high school when I was in that class, it was all about trying to get the lowest student up to the same level as us. On a fire scene, you have to have everybody at a proficient or exceedingly proficient level to have a successful scene. So for me, it's great to hear that, but it's also like, I feel like it puts the responsibility on me to pass it off to the next generation below me, and help train the next generation up and try to bring them up to that level.
Well, and I think that's the point of it, right? It should make you feel that way. That's when it's clicking in your head, right? The guy that's self-serving, that doesn't show anybody anything, that's telling everybody how stupid they are, that's always lives in that negative connotation. He's not doing anything good for your department. Mm-hmm. He may be the greatest firefighter that ever, raked out a ceiling with a pike pole, but he's not good for your department and your organization.
No, it's a death sentence for your organization. Just, load it at the top, kill it, mission accomplished. It just is. It is. It's just frustrating to me to have that conversation with those individuals. And, by the time you're done talking to them, you're like, you do realize what's wrong with your organization, right? Like you need to be pointing in the mirror and be like, you fool. That's what's wrong. It's you.
That's right.
So figure it out. like everything you just talked about, and it's real. It's a common. The word is this: they. It's what they did. They won't listen. They won't do. They won't work. They don't want to learn. They don't want to be here. They don't want to train. Now, oddly enough, they do. They just don't want to be around you.
That's right.
And be dictated to. And, yeah. And that's not a new generational thing. That's always been there. The difference is between today and 100 years ago is that they have other options and other places to go. And that's what you're competing with. And if you don't have an organization that is remotely inviting to people, they don't want to be a part of it.
That's right.
And
we've seen that.
Yeah. And again, you'll just fade off into oblivion and just go down in the annals of history as just another number.
When I first came to the fire department, the people that went to classes and trained and did all that stuff, they would always hold the knowledge into their self because knowledge was king. And if I said, hey, that guy knows hazmat, and so everybody looks to him as he's our hazmat guy. But what happens if that guy's not there? Like, all of us need to know hazmat. All of us need to know technical rescue. All of us need to know firefighting. And so my greatest thing is being a firefighter is giving it away. Give all the information I can away. Make sure that you're better than I ever dreamed of being.
Yeah, that holding that information as a weapon, right?
Terrible.
They almost do it as a weapon. It's such a bad.
Terrible.
Just in general, just in life,
Yeah.
right? It's not the means to success that they think it is.
So I told you I had cancer before, and it's probably going to be the thing that does me in the end. And the thing is I can't give the information away fast enough. All the information that I've trained and done over my whole career, it would be the saddest thing in the world for me to think that when I die, that it dies with me. And so the quicker that I can give it away and make more people better at their job and do all the things that I can, that's my goal. Is I want to give it all away.
That is awesome. That is, I have to admit, I don't have that much humility. No, I'll say this. It's a travesty that you're not on a volunteer department because that, don't get me wrong, it was needed in every organization that you touched. But, oh my God, volunteers need that kind of leadership. Really, really bad. And it's rare in the volunteer side. And don't get me wrong, there's some phenomenal chiefs locally that I've worked with. Good men and women. And but that's a really unique message, and particularly the way you deliver it. That's a unique way to deliver it. Yeah.
And thought rattling around in my head here that just springs off of that. Like, it doesn't matter how great you think you are as a chief or a firefighter or captain or whatever you are. What does everybody else think about it, right? Like, if you think you're awesome and you're the best thing to ever poop between two boots, right? But no one can stand to be around you, and you're considered toxic. You're toxic. Like, you're the best thing you can do for whatever organization you're on is leave. Right? You can't fix that in a person most of the time. That's something that's taking years of conditioning to get that way.
Well, the only way to fix it is by the individual. In short of shock therapy, or alcoholics call it a moment of clarity.
Frontal lobotomy.
Short of that, it's you have to, if you are that individual, then you are going to have to just have this moment of self-reflection and realize that even if you are after a very self-centered concept of just respect my authority, you're not going to achieve that by that statement. The way you get respect for the authority is by being open, by being sharing, by actually providing useful information, constructive criticism. helping them grow as an individual. And you don't have to be a big old teddy bear to do that.
No.
You got to listen. You have to listen. Doesn't mean you have to do what you're listening to,
Right.
but you have to listen to it.
Now,
You have to understand a perspective that's not your own.
and you have to be competent in your delivery. And again, it's not necessarily friendly.
Right.
I mean, that I think that'd be the one caveat that I would add to this. To be a truly effective, beneficial leader, you don't have to be warm and fuzzy.
No.
That makes it easy, but you don't have to be. People will buy off into someone that's, quite frankly, not nice, but again, they have to be right.
Right.
And they have to be beneficial in ultimately what they're providing.
Yeah.
And if you can do that, then you're fine.
Yeah.
Like, no questions asked. Everyone will say, well, they're kind of a prick, but listen to them because they're right and they're actually looking out for you. Maybe their delivery's not kind and gentle, but they're telling you what you need to hear. And that'd be the commonality between all of them. Warm and fuzzy or just crusty is they listen, and the advice they're giving, they're not demands for instruction. It's constructive criticism and, like, for lack of better words, heartfelt advice.
I do a class where I teach command officers. It's called Lead with Kindness. And leading with kindness doesn't mean that I have to give you the warm fuzzies. It just means that all of us that got into this, that ever put boots on, put turnout gear on, we all want to do a great job, every single one of them. So being kind is me telling you when you messed up and me telling you what you did wrong and me telling you the reasons why, but not so you repeat it, just so I can fix it. And so then we go from there, and you tell me as a leader, you tell me where I'm making my mistakes, and then that way I can grow from it. There's not been a fire ever that I've been on that I haven't walked off the scene and said, what could I have done better? As a leader, what could I do better for you to make sure that the next time that when we get on the job that we're doing the best job that we possibly can? A lot of people's ego can't take that, but mine can, and I learned a lot from that, just listening to the people and being kind, listening to them listening to me, them telling me where I had faults and me telling them where they did, and just correcting the issues on both sides.
Yeah, I used to get accused of being cocky a lot, and I tell people you're mistaking cockiness for confidence. Right?
That's right.
That there's two different things there, and if I'm coming off cocky, I'm not meaning to.
Not me either.
I'm confident in what I know or what has happened here and what I'm seeing, and I'm confident in that.
That's right.
And I can kind of come off that way, but the reality is at the end of the day, you're going to be glad that I did whatever I did.
That's right. Because it helps them grow. Helps
Yeah.
everybody grow. They all want to do a good job. You just got to help them.
Yep.
One of the things that I did at my station, is always up until the time that I got in there, the captain is our shift commander. That's me. And they'd always lead the training. Well, at the end of probation, they'd go, this probationary guy, he doesn't know what he's doing. It's the worst probationary guy we ever had. And so I'd tell them, well, we're going to change that up. All of us are going to train. There's 21 people on my shift. Every one of us are going to do training every once in a while to make sure. So that way it takes the information that's in the individual head and it gives it to the new person that's a probationary employee. And so that way at the end of their probation, they can't say, that guy's a piece of crap because he doesn't know what he's doing. It's my fault. I take ultimate responsibility as the captain, but it's also the person that's the next step up from them that should have been training them and should have been doing all that stuff. And so when they train, they give them that information, and that way at the end they can't say that they don't know everything because they should have trained them all the way throughout the year and stuff. So it's been great.
Yeah, no, it's definitely you got to take some responsibility for that stuff. That is the leadership at that point's fault.
I find it ironic when people, particularly chiefs, and I'm not talking about the hate, the playful, calling someone a dumbass or whatever. Okay, that's not what I'm talking about. Right. I'm talking about another chief talking to another chief, and I mean hammering their own person. Mm-hmm. And it's like, you do realize that's a direct reflection of you,
mm-hmm.
Yeah,
right? Like,
that's right.
That's actually not their fault. That's all you.
That's right.
Yeah, the chief that says I can't control my people are uncontrollable on a scene. Well, that's you. You did that.
Yeah.
Same thing with training.
Yeah, yeah.
Very truthfully, Cary, we could talk for like another 8 hours.
8 hours, day, week.
There's a lot you actually have to share, and we need to figure out how to have some more podcasts with you.
I would love it.
I would be shocked if we don't get pretty considerable feedback on you and getting a lot more insight. I have a lot to learn from you, so just in that sense, I want you back.
I appreciate it.
One thing, and I know we're getting long. One thing I want you to keep in your mind for the next time we talk is more on this high school program.
Yes, sir.
I don't know if you have anything written down.
Yes, sir, I
but
do.
I'd be real interested in that. And I know Gary over there's been poking at that a little bit, and I have not been able to make any headways with it. Multitude of reasons.
Yes, sir.
Main one is I don't have the time to dedicate to that program, which I know that's not a kick the wheels and drive down the road program.
Right.
And because of that, I'm not going to take on that program. But Gary has showed interest in it, more than just interest. And I would like, and I think a lot of people would like to hear a lot more about that.
Yes, sir. I believe they would. It's been the greatest thing that I've done. Even, you're talking hundreds of millions of dollars in grants. But I think that this high school program, with all the people that have come through there and all the people making a difference in communities all around the United States, is one of my greatest contributions to the fire service as a whole. And I just think that it'd be the greatest thing in the world to be able to talk to you about it. I'm very passionate about it.
We have a unique opportunity coming this weekend where we're accidentally going to have the right people in the right room. And I am not talking about me and Jesse.
Yeah.
We have got to organize a meeting, even if it's 5 minutes, with some other guests that we have coming in this weekend.
Yes, sir.
They're important. I am not. Yeah, there's some more work to be done there. Jesse, before we wrap all this up, I'm going to turn it over to you.
I think this has been one of our better episodes, and I'm truly grateful that you took the time to do this.
Thank
and
you.
Honestly, stand-up guy, and we'll get your contact email in the description for folks to reach out. But I think that there's so much to be learned in the grant world, and some of the programs that you've been successful with, the high school deal, that we've got to do some follow-ups and have you back on, even if it's the remote through Zoom way. We can certainly, you can be in Michigan and we can have you here. It's
beautiful thing.
Completely possible. So
No, we just need to convince him to move.
yeah,
It might not take too much convincing at this point.
Oh, it was great.
it's not near as cold here.
No, it
Yeah.
was great.
We won't mention August.
Yeah, August is a different story.
Go to Michigan.
It's definitely not cold in August.
No.
But it's also not cold in January.
Yeah. Well, Gary, you got anything to add?
The only thing I kind of wanted to touch on, we kind of talked about grants and how long it takes to write one, and I know you guys have talked about on this podcast that you don't need every member responding to every call. Sometimes you have members that have other tasks on the department, and that's where they shine. They don't necessarily have the call volume, and so that's one thing to think about is other departments receiving applications is maybe you have a grant writer hidden in there.
Well, maybe you've got the 60-year-old retired English teacher, right?
Right.
That just wants to do something to help.
That's right.
And that person could fill that role
That's right.
very easily.
It might not be somebody that can pull a hose, but if they can sit down and put pen to paper and get you more money, that's probably more valuable.
Well, to kind of highlight something that Cary was talking about, I was never a writer. Math, science, history. I mean, I couldn't spell cat if you spotted me the K and the T. And I didn't really become a writer until I was an actual adult and in my almost 30s. And it turned out I can actually write. And I think that's something, particularly on the grant stuff, until you actually start to fill this out, you don't actually know if you can do it or not.
That's right.
And I mean, you might accidentally stumble into this and realize that, oh, this is actually pretty easy.
Yeah.
That'd be like my one moment of like kind of reflection for everyone out there is, again, highlight what Gary's talking about there. Not every single person's value to the organization has to be reflected in how much hose they can drag. And everyone has a different capacity contributing to the organization. And if you're not even willing to explore what your options are for your ability to contribute, and you're just writing it off, well, frankly, you're not going to get anything out of it.
Yeah, two things I'll add to that. One, the worst they can do is tell you no, right?
That's right.
And two, you never get what you don't ask for.
That's right.
So just kind of take those two to the bank because that's fact.
You're going to miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. That's a big, Wayne Gretzky saying, is just a big thing. And you're going to miss 100% of the grants that you don't apply for. So just apply. And it's a learning process, and you're going to learn. But I'm not even the smartest guy in this room. And so the thing is that when you get down to the end, if I can do it, so can you. So that's just really what I want to come down to. But it's been a great opportunity being down here. I've enjoyed every bit of it. I love your fire department. It's been a great learning potential for me. I've learned some things. I've been able to expand my craft by being here, and I'm just grateful for that. I'm just grateful for your fire department, and I'm actually very grateful to be on your podcast too. Hopefully we could spread the word out about certain things we talked about today so people don't feel intimidated by grants or trying to do the right thing for their firefighters.
No, I have a sneaky feeling our listening base is just big enough that we should probably, not necessarily just tomorrow, but start actually generating some pretty serious interest in everything you're talking about. And with that said, Cary, if anyone was interested in talking to you about grants or the high school program or your officers class where you're talking about leading with kindness,
yes, sir.
How can they find you?
Cary, I don't have any advertisements. I don't have a webpage or anything like that. I just have my email address. It's carygrants, CARYGRANTS @me.com, and then I get 50 to 60 phone calls a day, and so that's always the best way to get me is by email, because you'll see that I only sleep about 3 hours a night, so you'll see sometimes I'll email it back at 3 o'clock in the morning or something, and it's just most convenient for me is by that email and stuff. So it's just a good thing.
Okay.
And we'll link it in the description.
Yeah, we'll get that in the description. Any last words, Jesse?
No.
Gary?
Nope.
Cary?
Thank you so much. I'm just so grateful to all of you guys. I'm just so thankful for the opportunity to be here and be able to learn and be able to spread the knowledge that I have built up in my head. I'm grateful for all of that.
Well, I can assure you, we're exponentially more grateful. This is Matt.
This is Jesse.
And don't hesitate to reach out to us.
There's the thunder.
It's appropriate.